Professor Wen Huang, Professor, National Taiwan University, if I could request you to join on stage. Henk Smith, Director and Co-founder, Marine Masters, and Aya Chemnitz, Chair, Standing Committee of Parliamentarians of the Arctic region from the Danish Parliament, and of course, Matthias Katten, Managing Director, the German Maritime Center from Germany. Matthias, if I could request you to join us on stage, please. Just a couple of quick housekeeping announcements, sir. We are ready to start the session. If I could request everyone to please take their seats. Please take your seats, sir. I do see somebody in the aisle. If I could request you to please settle them down, just in this aisle. Before I hand it over to the moderator, just a quick couple of housekeeping announcements. In case any of you want to ask questions to the panel, we do have 10 minutes reserved at the end of the panel for audience interaction. We have mics placed on stands across the hall, so there are 2 at the back and 2 in the front. Please do line up on the mics when the moderator indicates so that you are able to ask a question. And post this session, we do break for dinner. We have a couple of dinner sessions that will take place. Some of you have received invitations for those. Those of you who have received invitations, please do join us on the first floor, the floor above this, where we will have the dinner sessions. The venues are mentioned here. There is the Arabian Sea Hall and there is the Bay of Bengal Hall. So both of those are on the first floor. Some of you would have received invitations in your inbox. Please do join us there. And with that, Matthias, over to you.
Thank you very much and welcome to the session about black swans at sea. Are we prepared for the future? My name is Matthias Katon. I'm the Managing Director of the German Maritime Center in Hamburg, Germany. We're a think tank for the German maritime industry. We advise the industry and also the German government on all matters related to the maritime sector. Now, black swan is a term that is being used quite frequently, but I thought it might be good to remind everyone what it really means and how it was defined by the person who coined it, namely Nassim Nicholas Taleb, who coined it about 2 decades ago. And I'm going to read it to you. He defined it as a high impact, hard to predict, extreme and rare event that is beyond the realm of normal expectations. So that's what we're going to talk about here and its relevance to the maritime world. And of course, there are many things that come to mind: technological changes, the rise of artificial intelligence. We are seeing autonomous or at least semi-autonomous ships being developed and being tested. But of course, the possibilities also mean threats that come, for example, from cyber security or cyber threats.
Sorry, we can't hear you here.
You can't hear me here. Okay, that's, I guess, a question for the audience, for the technicians to fix. I think everyone else can hear me, right? Yes, people are nodding. Okay. We see a complicated geopolitical landscape with the rising threat of protectionism, rising threat also to the freedom of navigation. We've heard about this earlier before, and generally shifting alliances on a global scale. We also see climate change, of course, with an increased frequency of intense weather events. We see rising sea levels, and we see also, as an attempt to get a grip on those issues, new environmental regulations and the effect that they have on shipping operations. Now, these topics we will discuss in the next 45 minutes or so, and to do that, I am joined here on stage by a wonderful panel of experts, and I'm going to introduce them in the order in which they are seating, starting all the way.
Sorry, I can't hear you. I have a problem.
Yeah? Can the audio technicians fix this? Apparently the panel cannot hear me. So I'll start introducing the panel now, starting with you, Stella, who is sitting to the immediate opposite of myself. Stella Matsari, Managing Director of AS Marine Limited in Greece. Welcome to the panel.
Hello.
Sitting next to her is Rajesh Kumar Senior, who is the Additional Secretary at the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, Government of India. Welcome to the panel. Next is Xiang Wen Wang. She is a professor at the National Taiwan Ocean University.
Good evening, everyone. Can you please use the microphone next to you?
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll use the two microphones. Okay, is that better now? Okay.
Maybe you have to open it?
We have Henk Smith, who is the co-founder
Yes.
of Marine Masters from the Netherlands. And finally, sitting next to me, we have Aya Chemnitz, who's the chair of the Standing Committee of Parliamentarians of the Arctic region, and she's also a member of the Danish Parliament, where she represents Greenland. Welcome also to the panel. Let's actually begin with you. You are working, you represent Greenland and you represent the Arctic region in the Standing Committee of Parliamentarians of the Arctic region. How do you see the unique challenges that you face in the Arctic region?
I would say first and foremost climate change. This is really something that's affecting all of us in the Arctic. It's rising 4 times as much in the Arctic compared to the rest of the world. And what happens in the Arctic doesn't only stay in the Arctic, but it's actually affecting because of the sea level rise around the world. So I would say climate change first and foremost. But I would also say the interest in Greenland and in the Arctic. And you probably heard that Trump wanted to buy Greenland a couple of years ago, and now he's going to be the president of the United States again. And I've been a member of the Danish Parliament for almost 10 years. So I remember the last time with all the interest that we got from the outside. And what we said at the time was, we're open for business, but we're not for sale. You can't buy a country, but we can have a closer collaboration. So I would say opening Greenland up towards the rest of the world, having an open economy is very important for us, but also attracting investments from the outside to the Arctic is very important for us.
So would you, when you look at climate change, for example, would you say the risks are bigger for the Arctic Circle region, or do you see the opportunities? You mentioned, when we had the conversation earlier, you mentioned new waterways that might open up in that region. So from your perspective, could it also be something positive?
Definitely. What we're talking about in Greenland is, of course, new sea routes. That's an opportunity not only for Greenland, but actually for other countries. And I think a lot of you know that coming from Asia, for example, around Russia and the North Pole is much easier and much faster compared to coming the other way around. So I think this is one way, but also, of course, the ice sheet that is melting, and the fact that more natural resources are being exposed is creating opportunities for the Greenlandic society. So it's both a threat, but also creating some opportunities for us.
Henk, you work in the salvaging industry, so when something goes wrong, that's when you get called, I guess. We talked about extreme weather events so that become more frequent. Does that mean that climate change, for example, means that there are more black swans floating around that might sink and require your services?
We see overall that the amount of casualties is going down, so that's the good news. But we also see that, for instance, fire on board ships is increasing. About 20% of the total claims is because of fire. But nevertheless, global change, more storms, higher seas. We see the amount of typhoons in Taiwan has increased. We see that is typically an issue for an issue for the salvage industry. More ships grounding, which relates also to more pollution. So it is, the global warming is challenging for the shipping industry and gives us indeed, from a Svalbard point of view, more work. I think in addition to that, we see also the civil unrest, and then I'm referring to the Houthis, is also an important increase in the amount of casualties. The latest is, of course, I think one of the bulk carriers was hit today, but also the Sunion recently, a Greek tanker which was hit by Sunion rebels, is something which, and we as salvors are then there to preserve the environment, meaning that the damage to the environment, damage to the ecology is limited, but also preservation of property, of course. And that is actually the first and the main task is preservation of environment and property. But indeed, coming back to your question, global warmth, but also civil unrest. Maybe I can add one small topic to that. That is also the change in fuel. We in the past ships were trading on heavy fuel or marine gas oil. Now we changed to methanol, ammonia, and that has also an impact on casualties, especially when you combine it with the civil unrest and the global warming.
Julia, you're an academic. So from the perspective of research, is there a way that we can somehow incorporate these extreme weather events, this increased volatility into the projections that we make, so that we are in fact able to somehow prepare for those black swans that are out there?
Okay, thank you for the question, and I'm very honored to be here to share with you about Taiwan's experience. So I think because of climate change issue, so Taiwan's government already declared the net zero by 2050. As well, our government has a critical and comprehensive 12 strategy. So all departments work together to try to mitigate the situation. So when you're talking about the research, because there are more and more extreme weather events in Taiwan, just like we mentioned, they are even have typhoon in October. So this year, because it's typhoon, now there are 10 cargo grounded in Taiwan's coast, cause some ocean pollution threat. And so we try to, or we already integrated some data, and including the weather forecast and the radar to cooperate among different agencies, try to improve our ocean rewarning system. So we can have more advanced information to tell our people when the typhoon is coming, then our port authority can take measures. So for example, our port authority already have some vessel VTS. There's a service, so they can monitor the situation in all the vessels on the ocean. When there are some accidents, our government, including the Coast Guard administration, they will pay attention on that. So just recently about the accident, our Coast Guard, they worked with us to rescue around 60 crews on board. So I think that's what we have done for government and the private sectors. And also there are some investments on the port infrastructure to introduce new technology, including a drone and others, to have better monitoring systems. And also our private sectors, they have introduced some new technology and the warning system for typhoon and the earthquake. So I think through the scientific monitoring.
I'm just going to interrupt you. We have, sorry about this, but we here on stage have severe difficulties understanding each other because the acoustics are really bad. Okay. Is there a way you can fix this? This is a little bit better. Can you guys understand everything now as well? Does it work now? Can you understand what I'm talking?
Sorry?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
A little bit, yes.
A little bit better?
A little bit better.
Can we maybe put another one over there? Another one of these loudspeakers? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Julia, apologies, please continue.
Okay. So I think basically we try to introduce new technology, including the IoT and AI, to monitoring and provide better monitoring system to industry to avoid those impacts and threats. I think this is my answer for now.
Okay, thank you. Rajesh, we heard earlier about India's big ambitions for the maritime sector when it comes to shipbuilding, ship ownership, new ports that are supposed to be built. How, from your country's perspective, how do you balance, on the one hand, the desire and also the need for rapid growth with, on the other hand, enough time and enough resources to build insufficient resilience into the system to be prepared for those rare events? How do you balance those two necessities?
See, first of all, we have recognized it, that we need to scale up our infrastructure, whether it is ports, whether it is shipbuilding, whether it is ship ownership, and also recycling of ships. So that is the first point to start, is to recognize that we need to do these things. Any development, the history is suggesting that any development or big development happens only when you have very strong maritime sector. If you look at the current figures of Indian trade, the import and export trade, and even coastal trade, more than 90% happens on ships which are not flagged in India. Less than 1% ships are built in India. So you can say 99%, more than 99% ships on which Indian goods are traded are built outside India. And even then, out of that, 95% are owned outside India. So this is the first recognition that we have to overcome this. Second is about the allocation of resources. See, if you look at the maritime sector and particularly the shipbuilding sector, it has a huge employment multiplier effect. The European studies that we have suggest that the shipbuilding has a multiplier effect of 6.4. If you employ one person inside a shipyard, you give employment to 5 persons outside the shipyard. So it has a huge multiplier effect and therefore effect on the economy as a whole. So that the balancing by investment into big maritime sector in shipbuilding or in port infrastructure necessarily leads to a lot of employment creation within the country. So this is one direct connect between allocation of resource and driving growth to that allocation. Secondly, since you have raised the issue about this recognition part, how do you balance the allocation? With this, our motto is, the country's motto is growth for all. We live on the principles of the world is the universe, or the world is one family. So that is our principle, the old principle that we live on. So, and therefore you depend on the foreign countries and others depend on the other countries for trading. Necessarily this leads to multimodality. You need to explore new horizons, new routes, not the only traditional routes on which we have been sailing and trading. You need to explore new routes, to find new routes. Where are those? And when you partner with other countries, they may not necessarily be only maritime. It could be multimodal. So there are examples in recent past. We have just started working on that. It may be the IMEC corridor is one such example, where it is maritime, road, rail, again maritime. So you have a multimodality coming into that picture. So this is just a beginning of that thought. There are other examples also. As we go along, I'll present those also.
Okay. Let's get to Stella, who is from Greece, of course, a country with a very, very long tradition in shipping, yes. Also the home of one of the largest commercial fleets in the world. Now, with the combined experience of Greek shipping, how does that help prepare for these events, these black swans? Is the Greek shipping industry prepared for every eventuality out there because it has so many centuries of experience?
I believe that the Greek ship owners were always fighters and were looking for challenges. So they are prepared, I think, for any black swan at sea. And another thing that it's in our days, in one of our main concerns, is to find and replace the current existing energy sources, and to be able to make a smooth transition to eco-friendly energy sources and technology. Unfortunately, we have, see in these days that a lot of Greek ship owners cannot take a decision regarding the new shipbuilding orders because all these technologies and biofuels and electrofuels are in experiment level at the moment. I'm sure that soon we will be able to find the right path in order to replace the existing energy sources for the environmental protection and the oceans protection, which is, you know, very critical to us. We have a great respect to our seas. We were always, you know, as a traditional shipping nation, look after our seas, and we are very sensitive. Among of that, there are other, of course, black swan events that are in our, you know, that are concerning at the moment, like all the geopolitical changes and challenges. We believe that with the, you know, friendly communication and exchanging of views, you know, all these countries will find, you know, the way to face all these, you know, geopolitical changes and challenges.
Let me get back to the definition of the black swan that I gave you at the beginning of this session, an extremely rare and hard to predict event that has a severe impact. So now I'd like to give my panel a little challenge, and I would like to ask each of them to give us one black swan event that they think will likely happen within the next 3 to 4 years in the maritime sector that we're discussing here. And once we've done that, we'll open it up for questions from the audience. So Stella, do you want to start?
Yes. A black swan is the next years is the transportation cost. This is going to be a problem for all the nations of the world. And all these, the replacement, of course, with eco-friendly energy sources, unfortunately, according to the investigation that we have carried out, will increase dramatically the transportation cost. Sorry. A lot of institutes and professional bodies are forecasting that the transportation costs will be increased by 80% for the bulk carriers, 90% for the tankers, and 112% for containers. So this is something
significantly increased transportation costs. Sorry, yes. I'm going to move on. So that's your prediction. Rajesh, yes. What's your black swan that you're betting on?
Well,
please pass it on to Rajesh.
Sorry?
Thank you. Thank you. Pass it on to Rajesh.
Thank you, Rajesh. See, what I see as a coming thing from Indian perspective, I'm talking about from Indian perspective, will be that you maximize transportation of your goods, whether import or export, on at least some ships which are owned by you. You do not remain in the hands of somebody else, some other country controlling your exim trade. Coupled with this, we'll be finding new routes of trade.
Okay.
Apart from the conventional ones. So
in the Arctic, or is that?
See, what will happen, Arctic is one area, obviously, that, as Madam said, Arctic is certainly one area. I'm also looking at this, we have recently started from the Indian eastern side, trading from the eastern coast of India. Largely our trade has been from the western part of India towards the western world. But now if you look at the eastern coast of India, we are trying to open up this side and trade through this route. You open up this, you can also connect to the Arctic area. So this would be a challenge, but this would be an opportunity.
Okay. New routes. Julia, yes, please, your black swan prediction.
I think very quickly, maybe if I may two, that one would be about the cyber attack. I think that's a very important issue, but I think we already put a lot of hardware and software, and we have a good technology in Taiwan, so I think we can handle that. The other, I think maybe major one is about the geopolitics, because there are many countries around, and there are high tension in Taiwan Strait. So I think both government and the private sector, we should ensure about the safety issues. So our government, especially the Ocean Affairs Council, we try to cover the national security level and also public safety and the personal safety. I think sort of cooperation between government and the private sector to ensure the shipping free through the around waters and the Taiwan Strait. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Hank?
Yeah, India has seen over the recent years quite a number of salvages, vessels capsizing in port, blocking terminals and quays, vessels on fire. I think the last one was the Maersk Frankfurt. But India has not seen a disaster like the Erika of that kind of sort, which involves a huge amount of pollution. And I think, basis on the statistics, I think that's going to happen. Sooner or later, India will be facing a vessel, a tanker, colliding with a different vessel, and then a huge spill, and then I'm talking more than 50,000 tons of crude oil will get into the sea and even hit the Indian coastal areas.
Okay.
Unfortunately,
not something that we hope for, but
no. That's something different. I think salvage is going to happen. So I would always say is I prefer not that's going to happen, but it's going to happen, and better to embrace it and prepare yourself than try to ignore it.
Thank you, Henk. And finally, Aya?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think the world is very unpredictable, and it's becoming more and more unpredictable. I think we have many cases. You could take the COVID. You could take a volcano in Iceland, for example. It's not something that we would necessarily predict. You could also take the evergreen. We talked about it backstage as well. But I agree with our friend from Thailand, especially when it comes to new technology. And I'm really pro new technology because we need that in order to make sure, for example, that we have more surveillance in the Arctic. But I also think it makes us much more fragile. So I think both cyber attacks, but also critical infrastructure, how can we protect that? I think that's one of the areas that we need to look into.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to open the floor for questions from the audience. As far as I can see, we have a number of microphones, at least I can see 4 of them. If you would like to ask a question, please make your way to one of those microphones. When it's your turn, I have 2 requests. One is, please say your name and your affiliation. That's the first request. And the second request, please do actually ask a question, a brief one, that would be preferred. Please refrain from any lengthy statements or anything like that. Let's begin over here with the gentleman.
The lady over there.
Lady first.
Okay.
Very good.
Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Tanya Singh. I run a university between India and Germany, and also used to serve as the India country director of a geopolitical risk firm called Eurasia Group. My question, I have 2 quick questions. One is to Professor Huang, in terms of helping us understand, since she's based in Taiwan, what is the biggest risk to the semiconductor industry connected to ocean sports and shipping from a technology perspective that she perceives? And the other quick question is to Mr. Sinha. You did say about us as a country building our own ships, and that would be how you'd hedge the risk, geopolitically speaking. Would you think India has the talent capacity to get it done within the next 5 years from a training perspective? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I briefly that Taiwan has some, I think, some big shipping company, including the Evergreen, Yangming, and the Wanhai. And also, I think in the past year, they have already invested a lot in their, not only in the infrastructure in port, and also for their vessel, and cooperate with the government to improve our port infrastructure. And now there are more and more data input, including the vessel data around in Taiwan and others. So we try to induce, I say, the IoT and AI, try to provide some more efficiency. And we hope authorities can reduce the risk and the threat to Taiwan. And also, like I mentioned, there are some, for safety issue is also important. So we need the cooperation among public and private partnership. Thank you.
I'll get the mic. Thank you, ma'am, for asking this question. After the question, I'll request you join our team also. This about the why we have come to this situation where we are talking about shipbuilding in India. Why? India, we have prepared our vision plan. We have a vision plan for 2030. We have a vision plan for 2047. And if we continue at the pace or the scale at which we are doing our trade now, if going at the same pace in 2047, 0.2% of Indian trade will happen on Indian ships, 0.2%. Now this is what I am calling black swan. Conflicts avoidable, but not in our hands, we cannot avoid it. Pandemics avoidable, should not happen, but will happen, may happen, not desirable, but may happen. But what is in our hands is that we create strength in the country so that your dependence on things outside your control reduce. And therefore, the vision document talks about this. Now, coming to your pointed question about the skill set that is available in India currently, whether that is adequate or good enough to build ships. We have, but we still need to upskill, but we still need to go a long way ahead in order to, what we are aspiring to achieve, we cannot achieve with the current skill set.
Okay.
For that,
thank you.
I'm not elaborating on what is the roadmap. There is still a lot of work to do, and that is why I was saying that you join our team.
Thank you, Rajesh. Now let's move over to the other side. The gentleman over here. Your question, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Deepak Shetty. I was a former career civil servant. I retired as Secretary to the Government of India. I was also Director General of Shipping in the government earlier. There were two strands because we are now, the overarching theme is about the Black Swan event in the maritime domain. Just to amplify, there was a reference to the fact that you could have a potential cyber attack. The way I visualize as a clear, discernible and a very disquieting black swan would be where a vessel can be cyberjacked. It's not a simple attack in itself, and this is not in the realms of fantasy. We have seen it all. The manifestation of a scraggy, scrawny, pirate.
Could you ask a question, please?
The question is that are we prepared to foresee the fact that you could have a cyberjacking of a vessel and a vessel getting cyber commandeered to be used as a weapon of mass destruction? And that's not really, if you look at 9/11, that's all in the realms of possibility. The second one, which I just wanted to very brief, sorry?
I'm mindful of time, so I'm going to limit you to one question. And Julia, do you want to answer that question? Is that, Julia, maybe? Because you talked about cybersecurity?
If I have the short answer, I think the AI is important. Because now there are, I think there are more and more technology. So we try to use new technology to dealing with the cyber attack. And then also in our government, they have some new regulation to request certain percentage to put in a hardware and a software investment on the cyber related safety facilities. And we also have the CEO for cyber issues. So frequently practice and monitoring, we hope to decrease the impact and risk for cyber attack.
Yeah. Hank, I think you wanted to add something? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. I will give you a scenario. Oil tanker enters the port of Rotterdam, is taken over by, and then what happens? Major disaster, I think. The vessels presently, I don't think it's easy to do it, but I don't think it's also too difficult. So I think it is something which we should look at more careful. I don't think ship owners and port authorities, and then I'm referring to Port of Rotterdam, are not really prepared for that.
Thank you. Just one question is about the seafarers' resilience.
Sorry.
My apologies.
I wanted to add, and then we're going to move on to another, because we have a number of questions.
Yes, just shortly, I agree. No, the answer is no, we're not prepared. And I'm on the Defense Committee in the Danish Parliament, and I've been there for almost 10 years. And, you know, we're pushing for investments, for example, when it comes to defense. And 2% now, when it comes to NATO contribution, is not enough. So I think that we will see much more being done. But I think when we talk about cyber attacks, for example, we're usually talking about ransomware or different, you know, ways of doing cyber attacks. So I think really, you know, listening to the different experts on these areas is going to be very important, and for politicians to be quite humble when it comes to really getting the input from the real world. Thank you.
Over to you. Your question, please.
Hi, good evening. I'm Rahul Banerjee. I'm the Managing Director at Rice House. We are a policy think tank based out of Delhi and specialize in foreign policy planning. So a lot of work lately has been focused on the geopolitics of climate change and how it will impact the maritime security architecture. Madam Chairman, you have been focusing on the impact of climate change in the Arctic, and definitely a climate change will open up new trade routes. What would be the geopolitical implications in the region on the otherwise peaceful Arctic? We see Russia, we see China, definitely India has its Arctic ambitions that is not just limited to scientific in nature anymore. Just wanted to know your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you for a good question, and very relevant if you ask me. I think in many ways Russia's or China's way into the Arctic is through Russia. And I think that's important to remember, because just 5 years ago we were talking much more about the China being interested in the Arctic, and they were saying they're near Arctic states. And as I was saying backstage, for a lot of us in the Arctic, we were, you know, thinking this is quite strange that China sees themselves as near Arctic. So I think they're doing it through Russia as it is today. So I think economic interest in the Arctic when it comes to trading routes, for example, is something that we're going to see much more, because it's cheaper and it's easier. And I'm sure that China is interested in that. Thank you for the question.
Good. We have 4 more questions to be asked, so I ask you to be brief. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Naman Rajgupta. I'm coming from South Asian University. My question is very industry specific, basically to Stella. My question is, when we talk about sea disaster, oil spillage is a major case. So what are the standards being employed by the industry to mitigate any such issues, and how can technology like AI can aid to that? Thank you.
Oil, how do we address oil spillages? What kind of regulations? Oil spillages.
Oil spillage on.
Stella, for you? Yeah.
The Greek ship owners had invested heavily in the sea protection and the oil pollution safety. So any oil spillage can be very easily now controlled with all the techniques and the procedures that we have embraced all these years. We are very sensitive. That's why we have for our crew special training in order to control the oil pollution in case of happening. It's not always an easy thing, of course, to be controlled and faced, but there are a lot of special companies with chemicals, and you know, certain procedures were always assist the ships and the crew to minimize the damage to the sea.
Thank you. Thank you. So there are 3 more people who would like to ask questions, and in the interest of time, what I'm going to do is I will collect those 3 questions at a time, and then we'll answer them on the panel. Would you go ahead, please?
Hello, everybody. My name is Indranil Seth, and I'm an independent environmental and sustainability consultant. Talking about black swans, I'm going to bring up the elephant in the room, the COVID. And the COVID devastated the maritime channel and all the trades. So the question on sustainability came up. Since I'm from the sustainability background, I'm going to ask the panel, going forward, building new corridors, new trade routes, and developing the maritime trade more, what steps are being taken to make it more COVID-type pandemic resilient, resistant, and to take over such
more resilient supply chains, right? Okay, perfect. That's the first question. Number 2.
So my question is that we see the COVID and the climate change. What about the health of the seafarers, the seamen, the sailors? We are not talking about them. We are talking about the maritime sector. We are talking about supply chains. But supply chain is nothing without the health of a sailor. So my question was to the Stella ma'am that with the rise of technology and what measures, what shipbuilding techniques you are using so the sailor is healthy at the sea.
Okay, thank you. Question about the sailors and how we deal with them. And the final question.
Hi, this is Paritosh Deshpande from Norwegian University of Science and Technology. I work with sustainability and circular economy. My question to the panel in general is, we have been talking about climate change and a lot of other impacts regarding innovation, creating new corridors. All these expansions will have impact on marine ecosystem. And in this case, black swan in the room could be, you have to deal with other stakeholders who are dependent on, other economies who are dependent on ocean, such as fishing, tourism, small nations that are dependent on fishing and other things. How do you deal with these tensions, and can we move ahead by creating inclusive reforms to have sustainable development in the future?
Okay, thank you very much. Those are 3 questions. The question about the seamen, is that a question for you, Stella, maybe? No? Who would like to answer that question? How do we deal with Hank?
Let me try that answer. I'm not from the ship owner community, but let me answer this is very, very pertinent and very important point that has been. It is not a question, that is for the whole maritime community to look at. This sector will not be there without seafarers. Seafarers are the one who run the whole system, whether it is ships, shipbuilding, everywhere I think. Only because of seafarers, because they seafare, they move, ships move, else will not move. So what was stated was about the health or well-being of seafarers. How do we account for that? How we improve upon the current level of well-being or welfare of seafarers? As we all know, this is regulated through the convention, Maritime Labour Convention. Apart from the standards, certification, etc., the welfare is actually taken care of through the convention. But as we go forward, another question which was raised here was about there were different types of players coming into the sector. We also face, India currently we supply nearly 12% of the seafarers in the world are Indians. And out of those about 3 lakh active seafarers, 90% sail on the foreign flagships, about 10% are Indian. But what our experience suggests that in many cases their terms of employment, their welfare, their well-being is not in compliance with the convention or the domestic laws, Indian domestic law or international convention. They are not in compliance with those. So we keep regulator keeps taking action against such.
We need to, sorry.
But going forward when we have,
I will have to interrupt you because we're already over time. We have 2 more questions that need to be answered. The one about the diverse stakeholders. who would like to take that? And brief, please be brief.
Maybe about the health of the people on the sea, because 98% of the export in Greenland is from fisheries. So this is really the heroes of the country in Greenland. So we celebrate Fishers and Hunters Day in Greenland because they're so important for us and for the economy of Greenland. So I just wanted to say that. I think education when it comes to fisheries, not only you know, going to sea, but also having much more technology and developing, you know, education on high level when it comes to you know, being at sea is important for the economy of Greenland.
Okay. I know that there are lots of interesting topics that we could discuss.
One question, sir.
We're already over time, and as far as I understand, the next item on the agenda is dinner, so that's never a good idea for a panel to stand between dinner and the participants. So with that, I would like to thank my panelists very much for this interesting discussions. If you had a question that couldn't be answered, please grab one of these panelists on the way out and start a discussion with them. Thank you very much, and back to the organizers.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this session. A big round of applause to the panelists. That was Black Swans at Sea, Are We Prepared for the Future? Aya Chemnitz, Henk Smith, Hsian Wen Huang, Rajesh Kumar Sinha, and Stella Mansarati, moderated excellently by Matthias Catton. Apologies for the slight tech glitch. If I could invite the panelists to join us up front on stage for a quick photograph, and my colleagues would also hand you over a token of appreciation. With that, we come to the close of the plenary sessions for the day. Thank you so much for being a patient audience. Dinner will be served in another 5 minutes outside, but in the meantime, please do join us on the first floor if you've received an invitation to one of the dinners. And the other dinner, which is on resilient communities, is of course open to the others to join us at as well. So please make your way. We do have limited seats there. Else, please enjoy the dinner outside. My colleagues are waiting outside to escort you.